Hi guys, Elle here. So today I want to talk about the tarot, and I want to talk about it in a way that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with divination. I want to talk about how you go about living the tarot. Specifically, how the major arcana lays out the steps of initiation. One of the recent prompts for the YouTube Pagan Challenge was asking the question, what does initiation mean to you? So it's sort of been a relevant subject lately, and it's something that I was drawn to when I first discovered the tarot. You know, it's part of that ancient wisdom that's encoded in the images of the tarot. You know, this is that Western pictorial book of the dead that I've talked about before. It's that roadmap to spiritual evolution. It's even the hero's journey. You know, that's what the hero's seeking. He's seeking enlightenment, right? So this is something that a lot of books out there, right, they'll talk about, or they'll make reference to, really. They don't necessarily often go into a lot of detail. You know, they'll talk about how, you know, if you're at the magician card, right, you have control of the four elements, and you're a new initiate. But what does that really mean? What does that feel like? What's happening to you? And especially as you work your way, you know, through the major arcana, so you get to the Hanged Man, and you really want to know, like, what is the level of consciousness at the Hanged Man? What is happening to you? What do you experience? What should you be doing at the level of the Hanged Man? This is the kind of stuff that I really wanted to understand. I wanted to learn, you know? So all of this information really it's cumulative. It comes from lots of different places, lots of different sources. I am going to just mention one book. And I'm mentioning this book because the whole thing is devoted to talking about what we're going to be talking about in a second. And that's The Wisdom of the Tarot by Elizabeth Heisch. This is, I'll put a link down below and spell it all out. This is a German version of the book, actually. I can't really read it, but I bought it recently because, can you see that? It comes with the cards that originally came with this book, the Oswald Worth Majors. It's freaking amazing. But yeah, that whole entire book is devoted to exactly this process. It's amazing. It's definitely where I was first really introduced to the details of this process. I don't necessarily agree with every single thing that she has in here, but it's a great reference to have. So there's also another series of videos out there on YouTube that talks about this stuff specifically. It's Swamiji Nisarg's tarot videos. I'll put a link below to those guys too. Now he has one video devoted to each card where he talks about that spiritual evolution, that spiritual journey that you're making through the major arcana. And his videos are just fantastic if you've never seen them before. So one more thing before we jump in. I'm not going to talk too much about the symbolism on the cards, how the tarot is also a creation story. I'm not going to go into more practical meanings for the cards. I am definitely working on a new series where I'm going to do one video dedicated to each card and give you the entire range of meanings, or my meanings. I think it'll be really fun. So in this video, just focusing on this one path, the path of the initiate. And I'm going to take you right up to the Chariot today. Next time we'll go up to Temperance, and the time after that, the World. Okay, so we are going to start with the Fool. I have a few different decks that I'm going to show you guys throughout these videos. There's your classic Rider-Waite-Smith Fool. But we're going to start with the Fool. Now, we will meet the Fool again at the end of these videos and go into much greater detail then. But for now, the Fool is the beginning and the end. So he's where you start, but he's also the goal. So here at the beginning, the Fool represents innocence. You know, he realizes that something is missing from his life, although he might not have any idea what it is that's missing yet. You know, he's poor, right? He's poor, he's suffering, he's sort of alone. Now, he has no idea what he's missing. He's ignorant of what else is out there. He doesn't really know what it is that he's even looking for yet. He has no idea that what he's seeking is actually himself. You know, he's seeking godhood, but really that is you eventually, right? But you know, he jumps off the cliff anyway, right? He takes that leap into the abyss, into the void. You know, in general, right, the Fool is something out of nothing, or nothing into something. It's spirit into matter. So in the same way, it is the beginning of your spiritual life. It's that yearning for, it's that setting out to self-discovery or self-transformation, that alchemical transformation, right? Now, when we meet the Fool at the end, or when we are the Fool again at the end of this process, you'll be innocent again, you know, but it's a different kind of innocence. You're at a higher level, you know, you have a new understanding at that point that is also innocent. You're still the Fool. And that's because the Fool is cyclical. I mean, he's literally a zero, right? He goes around and around. He is the eternal return. So therefore, he's also the eternal here and now. He is the present moment. Therefore, he's always with you. He is awareness. He is consciousness. You are the Fool always throughout your life and throughout this entire journey. Because where else can you exist if not in the present moment, in the here and now? So he's literally with you every step of the way throughout this entire process. You really are on the Fool's journey. And the Fool's journey that we're talking about is initiation and waking up. So here really starts the work now. Here at the Magician, you officially become an initiate. It's the number 1, right? It gives rise to all the other numbers. It's the beginning of development. It's Aleph. It's the beginning of the alphabet. It's the bud that leads to the blossom. So here in the Magician, you are a man or a woman who has just awakened. You are suddenly conscious of yourself in the here and now, right? Just like we said in the Fool card before. You're in that one cosmic moment, and you're there with all your potential. And all of your divine treasures are still latent within yourself. It's only a matter of time now until you're able to manifest your perfected self. So really what you're in possession of here are the 4 suits of the tarot, just like you see on all your Magician cards there. Here, look at this guy. He's got his wand in his hand, and then representations of the other 4 suits are on the table. So on the card here, at your disposal, you have your wand that can open your unconscious and energize your body. You have your cup, your soul, your emotional self. You can drink the divine spirit. You have your sword. You can vanquish the shadows of the subconscious. And that's your intellectual capacity, your mental self. And then finally you have your coin, symbolizing that you have spiritual power over matter and over your physical self and over the physical world. So here at the Magician, you actually do know the value of these things, partly because you've already worked with them thus far. You know, in your life up to this point, you've already been living the minor arcana and readying your emotional self, readying your intellectual self, getting yourself to a place where you're ready to journey down the major arcana path. You wouldn't necessarily have started down this path of initiation unless you had already gotten yourself to a certain point. You know, you already walked the path of the minor arcana before you can head down the path of the majors. So the other part of the Magician card that I think is really, really cool is, you know, once you've gotten to this first step, this initiation, you understand how incredibly powerful you are. That you have these powerful capacities within you, that you have some sort of control over the world and over yourself, that you are a powerful being, you know, you're a magician of sorts. And then it leads you to this realization that you will never again be lost as you were before, you know, before in the Fool card when you didn't know what you were. Here you know, and you'll never be lost in the world of illusions. You'll never get lost again in the forest of false material values, you know, because you know better now. So here at the Magician, you're working on uniting these disparate elements of yourself and sort of trying to pull them all together. You're not quite an active magician yet. but you're learning, you're setting down the path to self-discovery and self-knowledge. Here the focus is on maintaining an open mind. This is number one. This is unity. You don't want to go off into polarity, thinking this versus that. You want to maintain an open mind, a harmonized, balanced approach to life. That's part of what the magician represents here too. Oh, gotta get the Marielle magician in. So amazing. All right, that brings us to the High Priestess. That's the Oswald Worth. Beautiful, right? So here at this card, you turn inwards. Your interest turns to the other world, you know? You even begin to suspect that you are not solely on this earth to fulfill earthly duties. There's more to life. You start to realize that. You start to experience the stirrings of real self-awareness at this card. And you don't even yet know that the goal that you seek, the fulfillment that you're seeking, really is simply the brushing away of the veil of illusion, the veil of Maya that you see on all these cards. That veil that hangs between the two pillars, or the two poles of existence, the two polarities in the universe, the two polarities within yourself, the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine, the spiritual and the physical, the black and the white, the positive and the negative, you know, all that. So after you've balanced the elements in the magician card, you start to look at life from a more spiritual perspective with the High Priestess card, where the magician turned outwards, right? The High Priestess turns inward. So here you meet the guardian of the mysteries, the High Priestess herself, right? And she is your inner consciousness, you know, your inner guide. You've always been connected to her. And what she really wants is she wants for you to experience everything for yourself. This lady ain't gonna take you by the hand and show you everything. She's gonna show you nothing. She wants you to experience it for yourself. At the level of consciousness of the High Priestess, she cannot just lift the veil for you. You know, if you were to experience the true reality or ultimate reality at this point in the journey, you're far too immature a soul at this point to experience that. You know, she's going to keep the veil down. You're not going to see through to the truth of anything. You're just going to start to understand that it's there through experience, you know, through your everyday life. So really what's happening at this card is you are experiencing the polarities, the dualities within yourself, you know, your masculine side, your feminine side. You're experiencing them, and you're experiencing it during your life, that you know that this isn't the be-all end-all. You know there's something existing beyond this physical body, beyond the physical matter that you experience every day. So also at the High Priestess level of consciousness, you experience a lack of unity. You know, it's a division. The number here is 2, of course, right? It's no longer unity like you had in the magician. In the High Priestess, there's a division. And with this division comes an inner conflict of sorts. You know, you might experience a desire to be released from life, to be released from the flesh, to experience what happens after. People, I think, even often become obsessed with death a little bit at this stage of consciousness. You know, you still belong to the temporal world at this point, with all its joys and all its sorrows, but you're just very interested in what happens next, in what's on the other side of the veil. You know, you even start to ask yourself questions like what is the purpose of life when I'm only going to leave it all behind? You know, what can I really take with me after this life? Also, at this level of consciousness, you start to become really interested and fascinated by things like the occult, and you start studying different spiritualities and different religions, and you know, taking on different practices and things like that. You know, you want to be able to answer the question, what happens after I die? And eventually you start to understand that no matter what, you do live on after the physical body dies. So here in the High Priestess card, you've become aware of the duality in nature and the dualities within yourself. You know, that masculine and the feminine, the here and the there, the this temporal world and the other world. You haven't yet united anything. You haven't crossed any bridges. You haven't done anything like that just yet. But the High Priestess makes you seek these things out for yourself and experience them for yourself so you can come to your own understanding and your own realization. Go, High Priestess. All right, moving on to the Empress. There she is. Here you come face to face with a great secret. And it's the mystery whereby spirit unites with matter. Where the divine becomes human. So here's another one. She is the Queen of Heaven, and she has the power to join the material and the spiritual worlds. She has dominion over the universe. Something you see there in the 12 stars on her crown, you know, one for each sign of the zodiac, and the zodiacal energies are the energies that make up our universe, you know. She's got the power over them. So the Empress doesn't want to hide anything from you like the High Priestess did. Here you want to unite the two worlds, this world and the other world. Where at the High Priestess you wanted to know each of them separately. Here you let your inner self rule the material world. You let your inner self rule the physical body. You even start to realize here at the Empress that spirit assembled your physical body, you know, even if it is only a distant manifestation of that spirit. Here too, you also begin to understand that all is one and creation is a single, indivisible unity. So here at the level of the Empress, there's another Empress, you begin to become acquainted with nature. You start to learn to live with her and not against her. Good health starts to become a duty. And you start to learn here too that every physical phenomena has a spiritual cause. So thus you learn that once you achieve an inner harmony, that our bodies will also then become healthy. So the lesson learned here is that you can actually have dominion over nature, that you can control and work with the forces of nature, but only if you first recognize the laws of nature and how things work. So here you're beginning to practice mental concentration and learning self-control. You're making your outside match what you already know on the inside, making your outside match your insides. You're bringing your spirituality into your daily life. Your daily material life, you know? So if you, for example, identify yourself with spirit and seek spiritual joys, you know, you will have created for yourself a heaven in which to live. But if you identify with base impulses and are perhaps ashamed of your body in some way, shape, or form, you know, that's when you've plunged yourself down into a self-created hell. So all of these places, heaven and hell, and they're all just states of consciousness that we can create for ourselves in the here and now. And that's what you're learning, how your insides can come out, basically, in this at the Empress card. Part of the Empress card is realizing that you have the power to create your own circumstances, to create your own life to a very, very large extent. Okay, before we jump into the Emperor, let's do a quick recap. We started out with our Fool, who realized that something was missing from his life. He became the Seeker, and he sought out initiation. Then you come to the Magician, who is the initiate, finally. He's begun his path of initiation. And his goal is to bring the 4 elements into balance within himself. Then we moved on to the High Priestess, and the High Priestess, or at the High Priestess, we experienced an inner change, really, because of that realization that we learned through experiencing spiritual things in our life, right? And that interchange became manifest in ourselves, in our physical bodies, in our lives, in the Empress card. So at the level of the Emperor, really, he's just a continuance of the natural progression that you'd expect to happen after the Empress, where that change manifested in yourself and in a healthy physical body, especially before with the Empress, and you realized you could create the life you wanted for yourself. Here you really see that play out in your environment around you in the Emperor card. Here the world around you starts to change. Remember how we said in the Empress, you can create heaven or hell. Well, here's where you actually can create that for yourself. You see the changes manifest around you because of that change within you. Now, the power of the Emperor isn't just sheer force either. Really what he is the power of love itself. And he is the ruler of all things physical. He's the ruler of matter. So what our Emperor does, here's our Emperor, is he uses his own body. He uses this cube here also that you see, and his body, right? Because the cube is a metaphor for the house of God. It's a metaphor for the container of spirit, our bodies, right? So he uses his body as a source of energy, and he transforms physical energies into spiritual powers. So the Emperor is master of his physical desires. He uses his power to help himself and to help others. He wants to alleviate the suffering of others. And at this level of consciousness, you on the path as the initiate also start to do the same thing. You start to become a spiritual leader of sorts. He really tries to alleviate human suffering. Remember, he's not this harsh power, he's love. I think it sort of starts to dawn on you here too that your spiritual level doesn't have so much to do with how much you know, but how much love and capacity to love that you have within you. So yeah, at the Emperor, you are simply, it's sort of beyond your control, but you're manifesting everything that you manifested within yourself already in the world around you. And that brings us to one of my favorites, the Hierophant. There he is. So this is a transformative card. I feel like here's where on this journey things get really interesting and really fun. And things really take off. It's a transformative level that you're at the level of the Hierophant. It really expands the boundaries of your perception. So basically what you're doing at the Hierophant is you are attempting to build a bridge to your higher self so that you can enter into contact with it, so you can have communication with it. So the other part of this card is that you won't be able to reach higher self unless you find a balance first within yourself. And that's what those two figures, boop, boop, down at the bottom of the card at the feet of the Pope represent. They're very similar to the two pillars that we saw in the High Priestess card. They're masculine and feminine. They're positive and negative. They're matter and spirit. They're order and chaos, and so on and so forth. That's what these two people represent there. And then, of course, you have your Pope, who represents yourself or your higher self. But both the animal nature and your human nature, or your masculine and your feminine, both of these are necessary. You can't just have one overpower the other or you'll lose control. They need to be in balance, and you need them both. So here you realize that your spirit is actually sexless. It's not male, it's not female. And as you awaken, you start to not think of yourself as male or female, but as human. When you reach your goal, you become androgynous anyway. And although we manifest as only one half of the whole, as one sex or the other in this life, your consciousness is above sex. It's above sexuality. So what you do is you strive to live according to this insight, to become sexless and incorporate both your masculine and your feminine natures into yourself. You try to become more childlike, as they say. And from this understanding and this balance that you have for yourself, through this, you're able to have that vision of the higher self that we were talking about. And the higher self, here's another Hierophant to the Pope. The higher self becomes your teacher, just like what you see going on in the card here. He's teaching. So here, while striving to maintain that inner balance, you actually come to realize what you truly are. And that's partly because you realize that the higher self is, in fact, a part of you. You begin to understand that you exist on several levels and in many different dimensions simultaneously. What you had previously thought that you were turns out to be but a microscopic part of what you really truly are. So from here on out, from the Hierophant on down through to the end, till we meet the Fool again in the world, what you will be doing is looking to your higher self for instruction and for guidance. You were just unable to make contact before the level of the Hierophant or the Pope. Now, this vision of the higher self is an insanely powerful and amazing experience, right? Now that you are able to make contact with your higher self, it's that part of yourself you're going to look to for guidance and to know which way is right and which path to choose. And actually, that's what we're going to talk about next in the Lovers. So at the level of the Lovers, you are facing an inner struggle here, the likes of which you'll face several times over throughout your life. But it's about choosing a path, to go left or to go right, to choose the left path or the right-handed path. One path requires renunciation and sacrifice, but it offers the joy of the utter joy and beautifulness that is true love. It's a more difficult path, but one that offers a much greater reward. While on the other hand, the left-hand path, the other path here, lures you with easy success and without a struggle. It's short-lived pleasure and gratification of physical desires and urges. Here at the Lovers, you're asking yourself, do we ignore our own inner convictions? Do we ignore our higher selves? Or do we in fact enter into union with our higher selves? Do we marry our persona to our higher selves? Do we enter into contract with our higher selves, vowing to always follow the path directed by our own divinity? So of course, both paths really end up being the right path in the end. If you take the path on the left, you're just taking the long way around. If you take the left path here and plunge yourself into chaos and destruction and begin to lose yourself, and fall out of unity with your divine self, you can still change things, and then start to head down the right path. All paths lead to God. Here in the Lovers, you're seeking union with your inner divinity, with your higher self. Here you're uniting the material, right, the downward facing triangle, with the spiritual, that upward facing triangle, the divinity. And when you combine them both, right, you create that 6-pointed star, just like the number 6 of the Lovers. It's this union. And at this level, you may not be fully united yet, fully integrated just yet. But you're definitely starting to work together, the lines of communication are open. You've built that bridge. So yeah, you're starting to work together and you're working together well. So if you look at it as as a marriage, you know, here you're taking your vows. You're even making a lifelong commitment to submit to higher self. And that's really the challenge here, you know, to be able to quiet the ego enough to let your higher self call the shots. You know, that's the challenge, to surrender to it. All right, welcome to the Chariot, guys. Here you reach the next level of initiation, called adepthood. You've gone from the lowly initiate to the adept. You're now a conqueror. You've made the right choice in the Lover's card. And now, you know, you stand tall, you stand self-assured, and you know your two polarities. There they are, the two sphinxes, and you're in control of them. Now, you still haven't yet experienced the state of being of unity, but you do have an understanding of the two halves. So here's another one. Here you are completely self-assured. You've found self-confidence. You've also become rather modest because you understand that God is working through you. You know, it's not coming from you. It's coming from beyond you, or a higher part of you, your own divinity. You've lost that previous egocentric arrogance that you had before, which really just came from ignorance, you know? But that's where you started, and that is now, it's gone. You know, here you're on a triumphant procession, in control of your lower nature, and being guided by your divine nature. Here you are no longer out of control. Look at that control. Everything is being guided under your own will, you know. So at this chariot level too, other people will be attracted to you. They will actively seek you out for advice. People will be flocking to you almost. You'll never be alone in this state. Other people will just be drawn to you. And you'll use your power and your knowledge to help others, to guide others. You become a teacher in the chariot state. You know, as this new adept, you will freely share the information you've learned. You'll feel like it's your duty to help others in that way. So this card is a turning point, you know? It's the end of one cycle and the beginning of the next. So what we'll do is we'll pick up with justice in the next video. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye. What the fuck? What the fuck? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? You're nuts. You're so nuts. Hello. Hello. Hello.